Hi everyone, it's Jor for ADSR here, and right up front I would like to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which will help you stay up to date about awesome videos such as this one. And I think it will be a pretty awesome video indeed, because today we're going to talk about diminished chords. And specifically how we can use them to create more sophisticated chord progressions and modulations, which is something that I've been using a lot in my own music lately. So let's maybe start with an example and then dive into the theory side of things. So the progression there in the intro uses a lot of diminished intervals and some other fancy stuff. Before we can get into that though, I want to make sure we're all on the same page about some fundamental topics. The first thing we need to know is how regular major and minor chords work. So here we see an A major chord, so it's in the key of A, and it consists of three notes, an A, a C sharp, and an E. And we can give all of these notes a number, and we get those numbers by counting inside the scale. So if I play the A major scale, so not the chords but the scale, I would end up with the notes A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those numbers, those correspond to the notes here in our chord. So if I do 1, 2, 3, I end up with the C sharp, and if I count to 5, I end up with the E. So that is how we build chords from a scale, and the same works in minor. So if we were to play the A minor scale, which is a lot easier because it's all the white notes on the piano, it sounds like this. We can do the same thing. So we go 1, 2, 3, which makes us end up at a C, and we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which again makes us end up at an E. So notice here, the only difference is that third of the chord, which for minor chords is a half step lower. All right, I think you guys are mostly familiar with this. I think we're all good so far, but that's just the first thing I want to make sure of, that we know how that works. Which brings us to our next topic, the 5 chord. There's a very strong relationship between the 5 and the 1 of a scale, and I have an example right here where we have the 5 of A minor, which is an E chord, and then we have the 1, which of course is an A chord. And in music theory terms, we would say that the 5 chord wants to resolve to the 1 chord, which I think is a topic most of you are familiar with as well. Right now we have a 5 minor chord. We can make this tendency to go to the 1 chord stronger by making this a major chord. So for that we would raise the third of the chord. And we can make it even stronger if we make this a 7th chord, a dominant 7th chord. And a dominant 7th chord is made out of a major chord with a minor 7. And to find the minor 7, we just go down 2 half steps from the root, or 2 semitones. So in this case we have an E chord, and if we go down 2, we go to E flat, and then we end up at D. So that is going to be our 7th. So let's add that to our chord. And this chord, it feels very unfinished, very unresolved, until we go back to this 1 chord. Alright, so a lot of information so far, but the main thing to remember is that dominant 7 chords built on the 5th scale degree want to move back to the 1. In other words, a dominant 7th E chord would want to move back to the A, because it's the 5th of A. And a dominant 7 G chord would want to move to the C, since G is the 5th of C. So with all of that out of the way, let's take a look at diminished chords. And the essence of them is really simple. We have a minor chord with a lowered 5th scale degree. So here we have an A minor with A, C, and E. And all we need to do is lower that 5th a half step. And that makes us end up with A, C, and E flat. It sounds like this. Now there's a very interesting feature about this chord, and that is it's completely symmetrical. The interval between the notes is the same. There's a minor third between all of the notes of the chord. So here there's only 2 notes in between the first and the third, and there's 2 notes in between the third and the fifth. And we can keep going like this. I could add a note another minor third apart here. And when we do that, it becomes even more interesting, because right now there's no way of telling which chord this is. And what I mean by that is, let's take this lowest note, this A, and let's transpose it up an octave to the A there. You can see the chord still looks the same. So if we invert the chord, it just becomes a different chord. So right now it would be an E flat chord. If we invert it again, we would look at it as an F sharp chord. And then if we invert it again, it's our A chord again. So there's really no way of telling which chord this actually is. And this might seem like it's just fun stuff to make music theorists scratch their heads, but for us as musicians, it's actually a very useful thing, because it makes this chord into the chameleon of chords. We can use this chord to modulate to 4 different keys by just changing one note. And it took me 5 minutes to get there, but that is the essence of this video. And hopefully now that we have all the background information, I can show you this very quickly with an example. So here we have a progression which starts in A minor, so it plays the 1 chord of A minor, then it plays a 2 chord, B, D, F, which is a diminished chord. Then for the 3rd chord we add the diminished 7 to that, which is going to be that A flat, and then we lower that a half step to create a dominant 7th chord, in this case the dominant 7th chord of G, which is the 5th of C. So here where all the notes are blue, that's where we've modulated from A minor to C minor. So let's listen to that. That sounds pretty smooth, right? Now we can modulate to 4 different keys here. So let's restore our diminished 7th chord, and now let's lower this 2nd note, which was the B, to a B flat, which creates a B flat dominant chord, and that one really wants to move to E flat. So let's change this to E flat. Alright, so let's do that trick again. Let's restore our chord, and this time let's lower the D to a C sharp, creating a C sharp, like a C dominant chord, C dominant 7th, which wants to move to the F sharp, I should say, and because it's the 5th of F sharp. So that's the concept to remember here. So let's move this to F sharp. We can go an octave higher as well. We could invert these guys here. So hopefully you can find some uses for these techniques in your own music as well. If you're completely new to music theory, this might be a little bit daunting and you might have to rewatch the video a couple of times. But luckily there's a lot of information on this topic to find online as well. So thank you all for watching. It would be great to have you as a subscriber on our channel as well. And in the meantime, I'll see you in a next video.